To noon.
9 a.m. to noon.
Putting in my calendar now.
Yep. Any other announcements, anything election specific? Or?
Well, it says Sunday on the flyer.
It does say Sunday, that's why I read it from the flyer. It is.
You'll read anything on the teleprompter.
It's right,
So
yep.
what is it?
Yep, San Diego.
Saturday or something?
It's Saturday.
It is the 22nd for sure, yeah.
I did just want to mention that absentee ballots have gone out in the mail, but the post office has changed the way that they have processed them now. Instead of processing locally at Mount Clemens, they're going out to the Pontiac sorting center and then coming back because that's how their bulk mail gets processed now. So people experience a little bit of delay in getting those to them, but please be patient and they should show up shortly if you haven't already received it.
All right, any other announcements? Hearing,
Sue Keen.
yeah, but yeah. 1 o'clock, what did I announce here? Let me take a look. Yeah, 11 a.m. No, I have 1 p.m. in my calendar too. So a clarification, the Veterans Day ceremony is Saturday, November 5th, but it does start at 1 p.m. Okay, good, thank you for that. I was thinking, hey, she's trying to jump ahead, you know? Okay. All right, next on our agenda, item D1 and D2 is from the Beautification Commission. We do have Mrs. Sue Keen here from the Beautification Commission. The initial one, item D1, board members of the board approved a garden maintenance contract with Lucia Landscaping last year. Jim and Sue Keen worked with them this season, and they were happy with the work that this landscaper did. Our contract for mulching our garden beds with Soulier ends this year, so we requested a 3-year proposal. I should say the Keens requested a 3-year proposal from Lucia, including the mulch work. In your board packet is their proposal for 3 years at a fixed cost of $14,024 per year. When we look at the two groups of work that we had performed the last 2 years, the mulch work and the garden and maintenance work, though that combined cost was $12,070 for 2022. The new proposal from Lucia Landscaping includes additional work that was not included in the previous proposal. I recommend the approval of this contract, but again, Mrs. Keen is here in case board members have any questions, or I don't know if there's any questions, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve the 3-year contract for garden maintenance and mulching with Lucia Landscaping for $14,024 per year.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. Yeah, we've tried them out. We kind of went with who we thought was the best, and you were right. They did good work, so I think we're going in the right direction. This is a sustainable way to maintain gardens in our community. Any discussion?
Just a question for Sue. Did they give us a discount because we did more services with them? Did they give us a discount because we did more services with them?
Lucia,
Yeah.
And it would be better, I'm sorry, if you're gonna ask, it would be better if you went to the microphone, that way folks at home can hear. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The only reason I'm asking is because I'm just doing some quick math in my head, and you said it was like 12,700 for the weeding and garden maintenance and the mulch installation. Was that correct last year?
Last year, you're right.
Okay, so, it looks like it's about $1,000 less if you include those other things in there, so I wasn't sure.
They've added a spring cleanup, basically, which brings it up.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, it looks like it's less with
No,
the
actually,
spring.
it's actually a little bit more.
It's what I'm
more
saying
this
is but we didn't have the spring cleanup last year.
Correct.
And the other one, but if you add those two together, 3,600, that's like $15,600, so it looks like we had a pretty good deal. I mean,
Yeah.
just by doing the math in my head.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, they've added the mulch in, so, yeah, displacing Soulier's duties, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We'll be spending more this year than we did last year, but we're getting more services this
okay,
year.
so the
More
mulch
we
wasn't
will.
included last year then, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you so much for answering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item D2, also pertaining to the Beautification Commission. Our Beautification Commission has worked hard to add public art throughout our township. Sue Keen has led the effort, and she recently identified a potential grant source to help pay for future art. The DIA has a program called Partners in Public Art that will pay for an outdoor mural to be painted by an artist, which is chosen by the DIA. In your board packet is a letter describing the process along with a grant application that Mrs. Keen has completed. Also attached is a proposed resolution that must be approved by the board in order to submit the application. I recommend the adoption of this resolution. I don't know that it's necessary that we read the resolution in its totality, but I think there's a couple of key points that are worth discussing. If we choose to move forward with this application, we are making a couple of obligations. Jim and Sue identified an exterior wall at Tucker Park that they believe would make for a good location for the mural. So that, we have to commit to a location. And we also have to commit to a 10-year commitment to keep and maintain the art. So there's an acknowledgement on our part that if we want to invest in this, that, you don't say, well, let's put up a mural, in 2023 and then knock the building down in 2024. So applying for this, obviously, this is an application. So if something changed between now and then and we were selected and we decided, hey, for some reason, something that we just don't know today, we could change our minds. But,
I just lost my minutes.
but in the meantime, I think, adoption of this resolution seems to make sense, and we'll see if we can get some public art in the township. So any discussion, questions? Again, Mrs. Keen is here, or is there a motion?
I just have just one question real fast. I see that you want to put it on the bathroom wall over at Tucker Park. That's correct?
Mm-hmm.
What happens in the event? Who's responsible if hopefully it ever happens for vandalism? Do they come out and touch it up or repaint it, or how do they do that?
So the, one of the directors from DIA is Ian Rupnicki, and I got a specific answer on that. I thought that would come up. So his comments were that the expectation is that the murals should last around 10 years under normal circumstances. Maintenance may be required if vandalism occurs or if there are unforeseen events that cause damage, like an accident or a tree falls on something of that nature. In the event of damage, the artist should be notified and either be contracted to perform the maintenance repairs, so there could be a cost there, or consulted to find an appropriate solution. The 10-year lifespan is based on the experience of the museum and artists we have worked with. The paint should typically last that long without regular maintenance outside of damage. The DIA will not pay for work done after the completion of the project. And he says, I hope this helps, and was also excited that we were considering just applying for it. This is just an application. They would have to approve us. The goal is that everybody in the township would get a mural. They're excited to do this for everyone, but in the event that we don't get called next year, our name goes back in the hat to with the applications, and it would likely be the following year. So there's that possibility too. They are also excited that it's a township property that we would put this on because of the damage issues, and guaranteeing that it would get fixed at some point with township funding or whatever we needed to do. So there's that. But this basically is the board's approving just to apply for it. So if we ended up changing the location, we could do it at that time. The process is to hear our story in Harrison Township. I have pictures to leave with you. If you wanted to look at the rest of the artwork in various communities, there are many out there: Rochester Hills, Auburn Hills, Berkeley. It goes on and on. They put a lot of murals up already, Sterling Heights recently, but we can change our minds about the location if you're uncomfortable with it, or we don't have a lot of space for a mural, so something that's a smaller canvas in a park that gets regularly visited was what we were going for, to be seen by folks. So, yeah, any other questions?
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Nope. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution in support of the application for a Partners in Public Art grant from the DIA.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
All right, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Had some discussion already. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those and seeing no
It's a
public.
resolution.
I'm sorry, that's right, it's a resolution. So adopting a resolution. So Mr. Whitley, please take the roll call.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Bocust?
Yes. That's, you're the president of the Clerks Association.
Indeed.
Wouldn't want to have that slip by. That would have been embarrassing.
No, I'd get kicked out.
That's right. Next on our agenda. So thank you, Mrs.
very
Keene.
much,
I know
Lauren,
you,
For Lucia and for the application.
and thank you very much for your effort, and I know that you had a commitment this evening, so I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to shuffle things around and come.
Thanks for taking me early.
Yeah, no problem. An easy one. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay, next on the agenda is item E1, excuse me, regarding the maintenance worker. So board members, you may recall, at our July 25th, 2022 regular board meeting, the board approved to post advertise an interview for the maintenance worker position for the water and sewer department. We have historically been at a head count or a manpower of 7. You may recall some time ago, I'd asked for permission to increase that head count to 8 for 2 reasons. One was to, because we recognize that sometimes we bring folks on and they don't work out, but also we know that there's a retirement coming. We do believe there is some additional work that we've given to this group of workers, and so we wanted to see how staffing at 8 would work. So we are currently at 6. We did have one individual who did not make probation, and we had one individual who chose to leave employment with the township, so we're currently at 6. I'm not sure if we were at 6 when I made the request to post, advertise, and interview for this position. But at this point, we are too short from where we would like to be at 8. And we do still have a pending retirement, probably 9 or 10 months away. So we still have that chance to try this out and put us back to 7 if it doesn't work. Myself, the clerk, treasurer, Mr. Axtell, our public services director, and Mr. Murphy, our water and sewer superintendent, conducted interviews over the course of a week or two. We had not completed interviews when the agenda was prepared, so I did not include a recommendation in the board packet. The starting salary for this position is $22.14 per hour plus benefits. They're subject to a physical drug test, 90-day probationary period. That is per the collective bargaining agreement. At this point, we've narrowed our selection down to 3 individuals. So the proposed motion was to hire blank to fill the position of maintenance worker, subject to the drug test, physical, 90-day probationary period, with a starting salary of $22.14 per hour, or $46,048.93 plus benefits. If the board is willing, I would propose that we would make the motion to authorize the 3 full-time officials to hire 2 of the 3 following names. One is Ted Vore, one is Ted Garwood, and one is Christopher Williams. And we just, unfortunately, as close as we got to the beginning of the meeting, we just hadn't narrowed it down based on availability and interest. So I would be looking for that recommendation, or that motion. And I'll say to the board, you know, this process, no matter what we do when we go through the interview process, while we're talking, one of us is looking up the person on social media, we're, trying to glean whatever information you can, but no matter what someone tells you across the table, these are positions, this is a position that really involves physical work. It involves a kind of a lifestyle where from time to time, you get a call at 2 a.m. because there's a water main break. I mean, someone hit a fire hydrant Sunday afternoon, it resulted in a water main break, and I drove by Sunday evening about, 8 o'clock, and they were just starting to dig and getting the water shut off. So, there were 4 folks in on a Sunday evening at 8 o'clock, fixing this. So, until we put someone in that position, until we see how they respond to being on call, until we respond, see how they feel about the nature of the work. It's really hard to know across the table. You can only go based on experience. So our real test is the 5 months of probation, 90 working days. So I do feel comfortable that all 3 of these are good candidates. We're only interested in 2, but until we can determine who's available, we either have to wait 2 weeks, and we'd really like to get them on board, get them that test going, to find out, get them up to speed, frankly, before the water main break season starts to come, as the weather gets colder. So the proposed motion would be to authorize the 3 full-time officials to hire 2 of the 3 following individuals: Ted Vore, Ted Garwood, or Christopher Williams, to fill the position of maintenance worker in the Water and Sewer Department, subject to a physical, drug test, and 90-day probationary period, as recommended by the interview committee, with a starting salary of $46,048.93, or $22.14 per hour, plus benefits.
I'll make that motion.
Okay? Is there support?
Support.
Okay. And a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose. I appreciate your trust. In the end, you know, the last person didn't make probation, we weren't comfortable, so, I mean, that's, once you get them, you're kinda, I don't wanna say you're stuck with them, but you wanna choose the right person, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item F1 from the Treasurer's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Board, after replacing a second sound system in the boardroom, Advanced Lighting and Sound, who is our audio-visual vendor, concluded that the audio static we were experienced was directly tied to our legacy microphones and wiring. The current microphones are unidentifiable units and are permanently installed, or they're hardwired. Advanced Lighting and Sound will install 13 replaceable audio-technical microphones and bases, along with new wiring, as well as offering a discounted installation fee totaling $4,168. Our cable budget, funded by PEG fees, is currently sitting at $15,072.04. If you recall, this budget is a running PEG budget total per month and accumulated year over year. Advanced Lighting and Sound has agreed to discount the installation of the microphones and wiring since we had interruptions with our equipment and our understanding of the supply issues tied to the interruption. So what I'd be looking for is I'd be looking for a motion to approve the purchase of new board microphones, bases, and installation at a cost of $4,168 to be funded by the cable budget.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Had a motion by Mr. Brado, with support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda, item F2. Mr. Tominelli.
Yes, thank you, Board. As I promised back in May, I wanted to, once point and pay was totally implemented, I promised the Board I'd come back with some statistics and total spend. And if you recall, at the March 28th Board meeting, the Board approved the Treasurer to move forward with the implementation of point and pay and to collect funds, in order to collect funds for water and sewer and tax bills. And I guess what I wanted to do is the total through collaboration. So basically what we did is we approved, and I guess let me go down here if I could to the my statistics. Maybe I can, it'll be a little bit easier. Apologize. So basically, So basically, we approved $35,000. We were able to implement the total point and pay solution for a total cost of $9,975.73. So I wanted to bring that forward. We saved over, I believe, $28,000. I apologize, I'm skipping all over the place here. Saved over $28,224. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, let them know that we came in way under budget, and that was through efforts of my staff, the water and sewer staff, and actually everybody pitched in, so we were able to really implement at a fraction of the cost. And I did include some statistics as well. If you look at your attachment, so basically, if you look at the quarter one, quarter two, and quarter three of this year, we're at about, of original ACH customers, we're retaining approximately 85% on average. Before we started the project, we had 846 residents on ACH, which is automatic payments. We currently have 1,085, so we have 239 new customers on ACH, and that's growing every day. The interesting thing is the paperless customers. We're right now at approximately 152 paperless water bill customers, and we only use paperless on water bills, not on tax bills, because of the laws with taxes. But right now, our annual savings on people who moved from paper to paperless in postage and paper envelopes and print fulfillment is $564.40. So that number will continue to rise as well. And then down underneath, we have some statistics on how many people have used the IVR phone payments, 123. So that's people coming, calling in. We have 61 customers set up to get SMS or text notifications on their bills and when they're due and when they're paid. We've had 591 people actually use Point and Pay to pay summer tax, which is a lot higher than we thought. And actually, we had 8 people pay or use Point and Pay for special assessments, which we also loaded out to the tool. So very successful. These numbers will grow, and I'll actually have these as part of my annual treasurer's report, and it'll be updated at that time. So hopefully these numbers will be a lot better in March of '23 when I report on it.
Okay. So there's a proposed motion to receive and file the Point and Pay implementation costs and statistics.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. As part of the discussion, I think this is great. I think it's kind of, we're moving into the 21st century here, so this is good stuff, and it is convenient. I've used it, and it's funny, I don't remember what one of my bills was, but I was so used to the one time every, couple months that I write a check, that I just sat down, I started to write a check, and I realized, wait a minute, I can pay this online now. So it is a real convenience, so I appreciate the effort. Again, not only of you and your staff, but also the folks in our water and sewer department too. They've helped, so, group effort. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion with support to receive and file. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item G1. Board, this board approved an agreement at the September 12th, 2022 meeting, which would resolve some issues with with a sewer easement, as well as some right-of-way issues. After that meeting, we learned that some of the requested work was unnecessary, which lowered the cost of surveying field work. We also had to modify the agreement because we learned that one of the hydrants was on a different parcel and already had an easement. I revised and updated the agreement. I still believe this is a fair and reasonable agreement and recommend its approval. The initial agreement was a cost not to exceed, I believe, $10,000 the board approved. I'm asking now to authorize the supervisor to execute the agreement with Kate and Blair Still to acquire the 4 easements at a cost not to exceed $9,000.
So the payment to them is still the same, even though there's one less easement?
That is correct. There is a reduction in some of the work that needs to be done on site. And there's part of this is a clarification. A big part of the concern here is that the agreement between these two private parties was to construct a 6-inch sewer main for a distance, and then allow a portion of the easement between these two parties to have an 1.25 or 1.5 inch force main sewer easement.
I personally find the fact that we're still paying the same amount distasteful, because they see government and they think we have unlimited piggy bank. But unfortunately, the alternative costs more than this, so I continue to support it. I truly think it's that.
Sensible request, because I don't believe we can get to our end goal any cheaper, any other way. And we would likely create a lot of additional work, some animosity, and we probably would have to remove the 2 memorial benches that are certainly meaningful to 2 families in our township. So that is the reason why I recommend the approval of this agreement, even though I agree that, you know, it may be a rich level of compensation by one measure. Overall cost, I'm confident this is the cheapest way we resolve this issue. And this is gonna lead to, you know, another residence being constructed on a really nice parcel of land between the new home and Macomber Street. And there's revenue, obviously unrelated to this, but certainly this solution of putting in the 6-inch main to the vacant parcel is gonna lead to a new home and revenue associated with the construction of that home and occupancy of the home, so.
Just a question on the agreement number 5.
Yeah,
Can you just explain that? Just
yeah, absolutely.
educate me on that, please.
Yep, so the typical process that we would follow, understand that Mr. and Mrs. Still built a very nice home. And it's a very unique home, and it's a unique location, but one of their biggest challenges was there is no sewer service in front of their home. So they either had to push sanitary service to the east or to the west, hundreds if not thousands of feet. That process took a long time. Home was finished, but they weren't hooked up to sewer. When we finally came up with this best solution, and all parties agreed, and we executed, you know, they executed agreements between those 2 parties, finalized the home, one of the things that's missing is one of our requirements to issue a final certificate of occupancy is an as-built drawing. So sometimes someone says, hey, I think I'm gonna build X. And maybe soil conditions or maybe other conditions in the field cause you to have to make a change and say, you know what, we actually had to modify this. The original drawings and documents for this showed the sanitary sewer lead, traveling to the east. So it was actually going toward the S-curves, if you think about it. The final decision to push to the west was something that our folks helped to come up with, and it's a win-win for for all parties, for the township as well as both private property owners. In order to issue a final certificate of occupancy, one of those requirements is an as-built. So we anticipated that resolving this easement issue was part of that as-built decision, or satisfying that as-built requirement was to define more clearly what easement was recorded and where their sewer lead was. In working through this, they were saying, look, the sewer lead's in, it works, it's been inspected, our home is finished, everything about our home is finished except this, you know, for lack of a better word, sort of checking the box, writing down on a piece of paper what this is. And we said, well, but unfortunately, in our case, until we resolve that, we can't give you a final certificate of occupancy. We do have a process you can go through for a temporary C of O. And realistically, if you're willing to work with us on this and come to some sort of an agreement, because we kind of had 2 issues at one time, and part of the confusion was, well, aren't they 2 separate issues? And we said, well, yeah, but we'd really like to just button everything up. And they said, well, we don't want to really wait until we have this final agreement, and we'd really like to get in our home. So we said, well, look, the cost of issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy is practically nil. We give you a document. You move into your home. The process requires a $350 payment for the temporary C of O as well as a $1,000 bond. The reason for that is in most cases when somebody wants a temporary C of O, it's because they haven't finished the work. Imagine you finish a home and you're ready to move in, but it's in the dead of winter, and you weren't able to put in seed and sod or do the final work around the exterior of your home. Well, now we're going out on a limb because we're trusting that you're gonna finish that project. In this case, their project was finished, but a paperwork issue wasn't finished. So they said, well, we'd like to get occupancy. We said, well, if we're working toward this agreement, it's simply a matter of paperwork for us to do this. Pay the application fee, pay the bond, but if we can get to an agreement that involves a final CFO, we'll refund that $1,350. Otherwise, it seems like it's a money grab. We're trying to get
But we're also not,
$1,350.
just to be clear, we're not refunding, it's not different to be refunding $1,350. It's different to be refunding $350. Correct? The bond always gets refunded.
For sure, yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I mean, always is a big word,
Well, I
but
mean,
certainly in the
in
vast
this-
majority of
yeah.
cases, people finish their work, right? The difference, though, is there's oftentimes some skin, if you will, because we're concerned that you're not going to finish the work. Most of the time when we issue a temporary certificate of occupancy, it isn't for a paperwork issue, it's for some labor. And we don't want a scenario where the person says, well, I just decided not to finish the work around my home. Well, hey, then you know, at some point that temporary certificate of occupancy runs out. This was a unique situation. We consulted with everybody involved and said, okay, there's no cost for us to issue this. I mean, it's a very, very nominal cost. And this is different than when we typically issue a C of O. So it had been discussed and considered that if you're willing to do that, you can get into the home. If we can come to an agreement, we're willing to refund that. But in good faith, they paid the permit fee as well as the bond, because we said, I can't just say, oh, don't worry, you don't have to do it. But what we said was, if you're willing to pay that up front, now you're legal, you can move in. There's no issues with, I don't know, homeowners insurance or mortgage issues or things that I'm frankly not up to speed on. So
Yeah, and I guess Mr. Witt brought to light what I was trying to get to was, what would we normally refund?
Yeah, well, yeah,
A normal situation, it's $1,000,
correct.
you know, and I'm just gonna say this because I had heartburn with some of this before. It does seem like a money grab from that individual side, right? It's only $350, and if it wasn't taxpayer money that we had to invest to chase this down, I would probably push back, but this is the best. You guys worked hard to get to this agreement. I think you had many meetings, many conversations. I just have heartburn with some of the things that's in here,
Sure.
but I think it is the best way to close the book on it.
Maybe something to help clarify the $350 versus the $1,000. Everybody understands the bond is kind of like a, hey, you know, it's a commitment to finish the work. Most of the time, when we issue a certificate of occupancy, when we issue a temporary certificate of occupancy, there's a need to go perform inspections. You know what, I can't pour my driveway and I can't do the final grade, but I will, and I'll call you, and you'll come back out, and you'll do an inspection, and you'll issue a final report, and it might involve multiple inspections, et cetera, et cetera. This, again, was one of those where we're saying, listen, all you really need to do is satisfy this paperwork explanation for where your sewer lead is, so that we have a record, just like every one of our homes. We have a written document that tells us where your sewer lead is, so if we ever have to dig it up, or you have a problem in the future, we can say, okay, measure so many feet from the corner of this brick, go out here, you know, that sort of thing. That's all they had to satisfy, and they had that complete. But we said we'd really like to have all this wrapped up before we issue a final. So I hear the heartburn thing, and I won't say I completely disagree. On behalf of the people who are the other party in this, they had a little bit of heartburn because they said, why don't you just issue us the final CFO? We've satisfied everything. And we said, well, we'd really rather wait.
Well, they
until-
haven't satisfied everything. They had not satisfied everything. That's why the building department couldn't do it. Again, it's paperwork.
I
but-
disagree
but
with
like-
that.
but
I
like
disagree with
grass
that.
is minor sometimes too. you
Sure,
know?
yeah. What needs to be done to satisfy a temporary CFO varies. But let me just say this, part of the modification was we came to the understanding that we are satisfied that the current easement that's recorded satisfies their need for the as-built and a temporary CFO. So no additional work is being performed for them to get the final CFO. So in theory, when they'd ask for a final CFO, we're not doing anything additional, but because there were two easements involved, and I said, listen, I would really rather make sure we get this easement recorded, because the other party involved in this won't be able to hook up to a sanitary line that's running right through their yard until we get this recorded. I felt I was more comfortable with a temporary C of O. My point is that there's certainly a feeling on the part of the Stills that we could have issued that final C of O sometime back, and they wouldn't have had to spend the $13.50. So to somehow keep any portion of that, we said in good faith, agree to give us the temporary C of O so that you can move into your home, we can resolve these issues that need to be resolved, and we'll refund that money, because frankly, they could have made the argument that they didn't need to acquire a temporary C of O. So that was our administrative solution, Mr. Condon's solution as well, to say, come in, apply for it, you're legal, but if we can resolve this, we'll give it back. That was a verbal commitment made long before all this, so. And again, we don't sit here, I mean, we don't build thousands of houses a year, but we build enough homes and there's enough permits. This is definitely something very unique, something we kinda had to work through to resolve. I don't come to you with these kind of requests, you know.
It's a very unique house on a weird spot. I mean,
It really is.
There's no question about
It's
that.
beautiful, it's beautiful.
Yes,
The folks
beautiful.
have shared that, it's interesting because a lot of the residents that live in that area feel a certain ownership, like, you know, oh, well, I used to stop there and put out corn for the deer. You're like, this is my front yard, you can't do that anymore, but, you know, you say, well, I've lived here 50 years, I've been doing it ever since I was a little kid, well, you know, so it is a really unique parcel.
Yeah, you wonder when the ATV course is going back in.
Exactly, right, when the water goes down, so. So again, I think this is the best solution. I don't disagree with the heartburn thing, but I didn't come to you until I tried to dump as much Tums on this issue to minimize the heartburn as possible. So with that, we had some discussion. I don't know if there's a motion or what.
I'll make the motion
Okay,
to, I don't know, what's the,
Authorize the supervisor.
authorize the payment.
okay, yep, to execute the agreement to
Execute the
acquire
agreement.
4 easements at a cost not to exceed $9,000.
Yep.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Townello. We had some discussion, but if there's further. If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on our agenda, thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is public comments. I don't see anyone present for public comments. Are there board comments?
I just have one thing regarding the item that Mr. Tominello brought forward on the savings, and I think that's a tip of the hat to Mr. Tominello and his team, and we're not fortunate enough to see that, and everybody works hard to get that when we authorize stuff like that, so Mr. Tominello, thanks for the hard work, and anybody that took part in that, please pass that along for me, and I'm assuming the rest of the board. It is nice to see, less than a third of what was authorized to be approved actually be spent, so thank you.
Agreed.
Absolutely, yep,
I
thank
think though
you.
you've consistently seen that at the treasurer's office, so that he definitely does a good job about controlling costs over there.
Yeah.
So, over the last 2 years, doing a good job.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have a random,
Yeah.
do we know any resolution on the Elm Lane Point Rosa issue?
I'm gonna look to Mr. Huth on that. I could comment on it, because I've certainly had conversation, but it being a legal matter.
Well, it's a case of which the township is not a party to.
Okay,
They're amongst each others. When we had witnesses that were subpoenaed to be there, I showed up, and then the judge asked me to come back in chambers, and that's when the discussion came up about the SAD. And all I committed is when there was an application, the township would review it. What had happened, though, is it seemed to be that the initial thoughts of one of the attorneys about who or what home should be in the district was larger than was realistic. So those attorneys amongst themselves are deciding on an application for an SAD. I don't think it would be as large as both sides initially thought. In the meantime, the court has kicked over the trial date, so there's nothing pending immediately right now.
Yeah, I was contacted by one of the neighbors today that lives on Maple Hill, and they said they were contacted directly and said they're no longer being considered to be part of it. So that's the direction I'm hearing it's moving, so hopefully that's.
Yeah, that's good news for them. Okay.
Yeah, I've had numerous conversations with folks involved in that, and I've tried to do my best to explain that I don't believe the people on the other side of that canal and further west of there are interested in participating. Just as a matter of public record, a couple of them have said, well, I think a lot of people are there and interested, and I've talked to some of them, and I said, well, that's good. I've not heard from anybody west of the center line of that canal who is interested in participating. And they said, well, why are you blocking the SAD? And I said, well, I'm not blocking the SAD. If a majority of folks on Maple Hill want to participate, I'm not going to stand in their way. But if you say, well, we got one person on Maple Hill, but all these other people, so therefore we have a majority, that to me is not the way to structure this SAD. We've been clear on that, and I've even said to some of the folks on Elm Lane, I feel confident that if the roles are reversed and Maple Hill was paving the road and we asked you to pay for it, I think you'd say no.
Rightly so.
Right, and I think it's fair. So, someone said, well, it'll improve property values for them. That's not the standard you need for an SAD. So I understand the emotion and the effort and the willingness and desire to resolve the problem. I've said to Mr. Huth, if there was a way that I knew, and I'll say this, if I knew that there was a way that this township would be, if the judge said, let's fix the problem and then figure out who pays for it first, and I promise someone will pay, I'd start the work now. We'd form the SAD and say, tell us who to pay. The reality is, if it was that easy of deciding who to pay, who's gonna pay, they wouldn't be in court right now, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so, I believe as time progresses, we're gonna have to come up with some creative options for trash collection again, for this season, because I don't think this problem's gonna be resolved before the road gets treacherous,
Right.
so. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Support.
I get a motion by Mr. Tominello, with support by Mrs. Rose. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board members.
Hey, Patrick.
Ken? The date for the fire, not fire.
Please open house.
Yeah.